Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Get a Grip podcast. I'm Shane Bacon, joined by Andrew Putnam in Scotland. We'll get to that in just a bit. Of course, this episode, as all of them are in this season, is presented by Pinehurst Resorts, an awesome host for the 2024 U.S. Open. Hope you guys enjoyed the battle between Bryson and Rory down the stretch there at Pinehurst number 2. And of course, it isn't just number 2 there. For the first time in nearly 3 decades, Pinehurst opened its first original golf course. That's number 10. It opened in the spring of this year, Tom Doak design. Number 10 features dramatic elevation changes, natural sandy areas, remnants of the early 20th century sand mining operation, thus the awesome logo you see there if you go in the shop. Number 10, number 2, number 4, any of those you want to play, including the Cradle, all awesome and all worth your time. Plan your next golf trip to Pinehurst at pinehurst.com. Andrew, we go from talking about Pinehurst to my favorite golf season, the Scottish golf season, links golf season. Where does it fall in your world? Because you got over there, I think, on Sunday morning, Saturday night, and now you get to spend a couple of weeks playing links golf, both for fun and obviously for your job.
I mean, to be honest, people would ask, like, what's my favorite tournament I've played? And I've always said Portrush, British, or the Open Championship. Literally just was one of the coolest experiences of my life. Like, you know, staying in these small towns, there's not a lot to do other than golf. It's just pure, you're out there playing, you know, obviously link style, a lot different kind of golf than we're used to seeing in the States. So great couple of weeks to get out of the summer heat. I mean, I think everyone just loves getting over here. It's a really fun couple of weeks.
Does it feel like that collectively? Does it feel like that as you're on the range and you're talking to your buddies on tour? Does it feel like kind of across the board, everybody, international players, American players are excited about this?
Yeah, everyone's pumped. I mean, it's you know, it's like the home of golf, right? This is where golf was invented, and we don't get to play link style golf very often in the U.S. I know there's a couple places that try to emulate that, but it is a couple special weeks for sure.
All right, I want to touch a little bit on John Deere, and then I want to get into the golf you've already played in Scotland. But before John Deere, and we recorded unsuccessfully, by the way, about 7 minutes of a podcast last week about your fishing trip. Can you hit on just kind of the great moments from was this your first ever big fishing trip? Is that right?
Yeah, first ever fishing trip. Got invited by some friends, and kind of a charity fishing trip. Best of both worlds. It was... had like a group of 30 guys, and we went up to BC, Canada, got a little float plane helicopter ride into a floating lodge in the middle of BC. And it was incredible. I mean, 4 days of fishing with friends and caught our limit. Had a great time. I mean, never been on a fishing trip before, so I think I just ruined myself because we started at the top and it's all downhill from there. But great to get away from golf just for a little bit. And you know, you basically in an area you can't be on your cell phone. You're disconnecting from the craziness of life. And luckily, my wife let me go on this trip. We got 2 kids and 1 coming, so I figure that's my one get out of jail free card that I played for the year. So
it's a good one to play. By the way, this is like, did you see earlier this year when that journalist at the Masters got picked to play Augusta National on Monday and apparently has never played a full round of golf before? I feel like your fishing experience was that golf equivalent to that experience. It's like, hey, do you want to fly to this floating island and like catch salmon and catch your limit, have it all shipped home? I mean, seemed like a pretty it seemed like a top tier situation.
Yeah, it was incredible. I got to go with some past NHL guys. Seahawks quarterback Jim Zorn. I think he was the first ever Seahawks quarterback. So it was an incredible trip. I mean, if anyone looking to do a trip like that, I highly recommend it. King's Lodge up in BC. It's an awesome experience.
2 thumbs up. All right, so I want to touch on John Deere because I got a couple questions for you. One, I saw you post on social. I think it was just somebody just throwing up on themselves over and over again. I really appreciated that, considering I think I've just been cleaning up, throw up and poop for about the past 4 days with traveling with 2 little kids. That was your last 3 holes at the John Deere. I don't necessarily want to get into your last 3 holes, but I did want to ask about playing in these golf tournaments where the scoring is consistently low. You know, you see the winning score, 28, 29 under. I don't think golfers really understand how good that is or how low that is. I always look down the leaderboard at tournaments like the John Deere. I think there were 51 players that finished double digits under par. For you going into those weeks, and for the people you talk to, the friends you have on tour, what is it like approaching a week where you know you've got to shoot 5, 6, 7 under every round to even be competitive?
Yeah, I mean, early in the week, honestly, the fairways were bouncy, the greens were somewhat firm, and then we had this crazy storm come through, tornado warnings and all sorts of stuff. Where I feel like we got 2 inches of rain, and it just once that comes through, you just know in your mind, you're like, all right, well, here we go. It's just going to be a birdie fest. So, it is a strange feeling, obviously having to, you go out and you're making pars and you feel like you're just getting lapped. And then you make an occasional bogey and you just feel, I mean, terrible by yourself. I got to make 2 birdies to even get back to even. So, probably not something I would love every week, but it's hard for them to, this time of year, if you played that course in the fall, I think it would be a much better test. But it's just tough, being in the Midwest this time of year. They get so many storms going through. They can't really set a course up hard enough to really challenge any tour players.
Yeah, I think you said it. I think it's kind of what it is, right? I mean, some of these golf courses, you can't make them that much more difficult. Conditions aren't allowing you to make them firmed up or to kind of to do the appropriate things around the golf course that might make it play a little bit more difficult. So it just kind of is what it is. You missed the cut, so then you go to Scotland early, and you just ticked off arguably my favorite golf course in the world. You got to play, yesterday? Can you walk us through, what kind of brought you to North Berwick, why you wanted to play it, and how was it kind of getting out there and doing it yourself? Did you push your bag? What'd you do?
Yeah, so I told my caddy I got in a day early. I kind of hung out in Edinburgh for a night, and it's one of the coolest cities in the world. I don't know if you've spent any time there, but it kind of centers around their castle. I guess it was built on an old volcanic volcano or so. I don't know. That's what they said. But I told my caddy, I said, hey, if you get out there, I'd love to play. And he was like, sure, I'll go walk into the shop. I know he was on a flight with Hadwin, and Hadwin was wanting to play. It's kind of a thing when you fly in the morning, you're just praying that you can stay up for, about
right.
5, 6, 7 hours.
That's the key.
You don't want to take,
that's the jet
if you
lag
take a
key.
nap, you're just going to ruin yourself. So it's funny because Adam actually, he said he went into the shop with his full hoodie and jeans on, and he asked the dude, he's like, hey, is there any room, to go out? And the guy's like, oh no, totally booked today, sorry sir. And Adam's like, okay. And then my caddy goes in, and he's obviously name dropping. He's like, hey, my player Andrew Putnam. And it's like, oh yeah, no problem. He's like, you want to go out in 40 minutes? So he texts me, and I was just at my place. I was like, sure, let's do it. And so we rolled out there, and I actually got a remote controlled push cart, which was nice.
Nice, dude.
And then
did you feel really young when you were using that? Did you feel like a really young guy?
I actually I have one at home that I use. So
the remote control one?
Yes, I'm very familiar with it. I use one. It just, I'm just lazy. I don't have a caddy at home, so
I haven't gone to the remote yet. I've got a couple of push carts, and I think the moment I turned 30, I was like, "There's no shame in this. I'm just going with this. It's better than carrying it on your back, especially tournament golf." But I have not ventured into the remote world yet. I might have to lean into that if you have any recommendations.
They had them available, and the guy just asked me if I wanted one. So
you're not gonna say no to that. All right, so
I'm tired. Yeah.
You're jet lagged. All right, so you've walked North Berwick before, but you never played it. How'd you play, first of all?
I played okay. Yeah, honestly, it was one of those like bluebird days where perfectly sunny, no wind. It just was like a perfect day that they get once every 3 weeks. Today is actually the same. Tomorrow it's supposed to blow 30 and rain, so I think we're getting the good weather out of the way. But
perfect.
It's just such a cool experience. It's like you're on the ocean, and the course has been there forever. You're like walking in history, and there's something about playing golf over here that just you feel like you kind of rekindle like your love for your early love for the game. I don't know if you've had that experience, but you just see people out. Like there's a range that's probably, I don't know, 1,000 yards out into the middle of the course, and people have to walk over there, and you see this thing just packed with like 30 people, and you're like, you're walking 1,000 yards to go bang a bucket of balls. Like you guys just absolutely love golf over here. So it's you just feel like you're kind of on some special ground, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's something about getting over there. It's funny as a player to hear it on your side, Andrew, because as a journalist, I think I've covered one Open. I've been over there for a few of them. And what happens as you get over there? This only happens at the Open, by the way. It feels like during Masters Week, you're very, very busy. You'll prepare golf or plan out golf, and it almost always falls apart. U.S. Open's much of the same. Very busy week. It kind of is like sun up to sundown nonstop. Obviously, at the Open, the days are so long, and the sun really never sets. I mean, it gets to kind of midnight blue, but it never really gets that dark. So you can play all night, but it feels like every morning you wake up, and there's some text from somebody of yours that's like, hey, Crail at 7:45 tonight, or we're going to play North Berwick later in the afternoon. It just feels like you're chasing the reason you got into the business to begin with. And I know on the journalistic side, that makes a little bit of sense. It's really cool to hear it on the player side. Have you heard of, are there other players you've heard of or other guys that that went out and snuck in a round at a random course that's not the Renaissance, where you guys are obviously playing the Scottish Open this week?
I think pretty much everyone's getting out. Like I saw probably 3 or 4 players out playing North Berwick yesterday, and that's
okay.
Most of those guys just got off a flight. So I saw Harris English out there. I know. I think honestly that course knows, like, when this tour event's in town, like they hold a bunch of tee times because they know there's a lot of guys
block out
calling.
a few extras. That's right.
Yeah, but there's a lot of guys that play. Muirfield is right next to the Renaissance Club. You can see it from hole 10, I think it is. I know my caddy, he brings his clubs pretty much every week on tour, and he's like this is like his favorite week of the year because he gets to play, everywhere. He played Muirfield last year with Ted Scott. They're the only ones on the course. I mean, it's a pretty unique week. So you played North Berwick out here. Did you play it in good, like, windy conditions, or how was your experience with that?
Yeah, I've played it a couple times. I played it a few years ago on a media trip, and it was pretty windy and pretty gnarly. I played it 2 years ago when the Open was at St. Andrews. It was pretty benign. I think it wasn't necessarily, a windless day, but I was playing. By the way, you'll love this. That's the year my golf clubs got lost in the whole Twitter fiasco, when the random person found them at the airport and brought them to me in St. Andrews, and like people like wrote these blogs about it and stuff. But I played North Berwick. We basically had golf set up that day before we got across the pond. Now, I don't have golf clubs. I'm a lefty. So there was one set of lefty rental clubs. And by the time we arrived at North Berwick, I think somebody had them and they were on the 8th hole. So we had to wait 2.5 hours before the lefty clubs came in.
Oh, wow.
But the conditions were solid. What's crazy is if the wind's coming out of the west, you play that whole front 9 directly into the fan. And then you make that turn, and it's just straight down. Royal Dornoch, which is obviously northern Scotland, is very similar to that, where I think the prevailing wind or the predominant wind is basically straight into your face to begin the day, and then when you make the turn, you get it on your back. I mean, obviously, St. Andrews is very in and out like that as well. But, both days I've played it, it's been pretty good. I would say it's a top 2 or 3 golf course I think that I've got a chance to play. Is it high on your list?
Yeah, it's hard to say because, like I said, when there's no wind out here, the courses feel so easy.
It defeats the purpose in a way, right?
You're like, man, some of these shots would feel so much harder if you had a 15-mile-an-hour breeze. But it was literally 5 mile an hour. So it's hard to say when it's going on like that. I want to go out and play it again, maybe like tomorrow afternoon when it's blowing 30, and maybe have a deeper appreciation for the track.
I caddied at St. Andrews out of college in 2006. I caddied for a season out there. My dad had not traveled internationally since Vietnam. He came to Scotland to come over and see me and to play St. Andrews, and I got it all set up. And the entire week, Andrew, was what you call the Bluebird week. Every day was sunny, windy. I remember I wore shorts one day when we played the old course. It was lovely. And as our trip was winding down, my dad said, this was nice, but I'd love a little bit more Scottish weather. Well, a couple of years later, we came back over, and this was more of a West Coast. So we played Troon, Turnberry, and then we went north and played Cruden Bay and Aberdeen and places like that. We played Cruden Bay in about 40-mile-an-hour winds. It was our first round there. Yeah. And about 3 holes in, my dad went, well, this was a terrible thing for me to say. I should have never said anything about asking for more wind in Scotland. We got kind of pummeled by the fan there. But I do think the elements, when you're over in Scotland and Ireland and England, I think playing in elements are massively important for the interest level of all that,
Yeah, because I mean, even the greens are designed to have wind. Like me and Adam were talking. We're like, if you saw these greens in the States, you'd be kind of laughing, like, this is a Muni course greens, and they're just so shaggy and but that's how they have to be because they have so much slope on them, and when the wind blows, they get really dicey. Like they're really tough to putt, and so um, hoping I know this next, we just got lucky the first couple of days we're here, so we'll be getting some wind. But yeah. So I got to ask, hey, you were just you were at home hosting an AJGA event.
Yep.
Was that your first time hosting a tournament?
Yeah, first time hosting something like that. Yeah, we did
Okay.
a AJGA Invitational at a golf course in East Texas called Pine Dunes, which is, it was kind of a hidden Jimmy place that I'd found out about. I think it was built probably 30 years ago, 25 years ago, something like that. And it's
Yeah.
very hidden, hard to find. I always have wanted to bring a golf tournament there, and so hit up the AJGA about it earlier in the year and said, "You guys have any interest?" And they said yes. And so, yeah, kind of put it together and had some sponsors come on, some great sponsors. I mean, like No Laying Up and Fried Egg and Back Nine Press and my club in Connecticut, Brooklawn. My parents and my dad's furniture store. My logo company helped out as well. We had a whole bunch of kind of people come together to help us out. And the event went great. The golf course was in great shape. My team won the junior am, which I think might be kind of a lame thing for us to do. Like, I feel like my team probably shouldn't win the actual event. They were handing us trophies with my name on them. You're like, you guys keep those. I'm going to be good. But the
Yeah.
event went great. Pine Dunes was awesome. You played AJGA growing up, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the premier junior league. Played AJGA, Cannon Cup, the whole 9 yards, but it's probably still the top thing kids are playing,
For
right? To get
sure. Yeah, yeah.
noticed by college coaches and all that. Yeah.
It was always interesting because, like a lot of sports, and I know it's changed now. I mean, I'm 40 years old, for goodness sakes, but when I was growing up, if you were a great high school basketball player, you could get noticed by collegiate coaches, things like that. But you didn't get noticed in high school golf in terms of how you played for your high school golf team. You got noticed by how you played in AJGA events and national golf tournaments, U.S. Junior Ams, things like that. So the AJGA massively important for me as I was trying to play college golf because I had a couple of good finishes when I was a junior in high school, and it got me in some bigger events. But did you win on the AJGA? I mean, how did you go about, did you play a lot? I mean, were there AJGA events up near you? Like, what was your career like in that circuit?
Yeah, I played. They had one up at Trophy Lake up in Washington when I was a junior, and I think I won it when I was 14 or 15. So that
Wow.
I won state WJGA, which I feel like that was a big moment. You get recognized by the local colleges, UW, and some of those local ones.
Totally,
But then
totally.
once you start playing AJGA, that kind of puts you on the map for the national scene. And I also had a brother who was, a really great college coach. So I remember playing my first U.S. Junior Am. I qualified at, I think I was like 14 or 15 years old, like really young. It was at Olympic Club, and I was on the first tee, and I had Oklahoma State, I had UCLA, Stanford. I had all these coaches out there just because my brother had put out the word like,
Yeah,
"Hey,
yeah.
Andrew's coming." And I remember being so nervous because I'm like, I hadn't proven or done anything. This was like one of the first times I ever traveled for a tournament, and I just got lucky to qualify for this thing. But um, I had a little more interest just because my brother kind of paved the way. But I didn't play, I didn't play a ton of AJGAs. I played enough to like qualify for the Cannon Cup and stuff, but a little more old school back then. I think it's become probably a lot bigger nowadays. With juniors having to get out and play those, and I think it's just more competitive. So I'm sure it's different now.
Yeah, it's interesting is what I've noticed, and again, I would not have jumped into this world except for the fact that I was a part of one of the AJG events now. But what I've noticed is there's a ton of golf tournaments, way more than existed when I was trying to play competitive junior golf. But they obviously put them in different locations around the country. So when I was playing AJGA, there was one AJGA event a week during the summer, or maybe one every 2 weeks. And you, in theory, would have had to travel to Alabama or Texas or New York or whatever the case may be to play in it. Now they do a good job of having one in the Pacific Northwest, right? They might have one in Texas. They might have one in New York the same week. so people in the Northeast and beyond don't have to travel and, buy 3 or 4 flights and go places, but still extremely competitive. I mean, I think there was a 66 the final round on the boys' side, where someone went out there. And the golf course is not easy. I mean, it is not an easy golf course. Tough. You miss a fairway, you're probably going to have to re-tee. So still, the update, junior golfer, still very good at golf. Speaking of that, by the way, we haven't discussed this yet. It's been a couple of weeks. I played, you'll appreciate this. I played the Connecticut Amateur a couple weeks ago. And it's one of the, now the U.S. Amateur has switched qualifying. I got through last year. It was the last year they had 36-hole qualifying was how you got in the U.S. Amateur. Now it's switched to where there's local U.S. Amateur qualifying into kind of final like the U.S. Open does. But they also have switched it where if you win your state amateur championship, you automatically get in to the U.S. Amateur, which is great.
Oh,
I think it's a really, really smart
awesome
thing for them to do. So I played the Connecticut Amateur a couple of weeks ago. I get through, stroke play, 2-round stroke play, get into match play. It's 32 players get into match play, and you play, obviously, till you have a champion. I win my first match in extra holes. I'm going in because I think I'm playing basically the best golfer in the state of Connecticut. This guy named Rick Dowling, who's awesome. He won the Mid-Am last year. I played with him in the final round. He's a great dude, great player, has played in a million things. And he was sitting at the bar having a beer. And I was like, well, that's weird. I would imagine he was getting ready to play. And I'm like, he's like, I lost. And I'm like, you lost? First round. He's like, yeah, I lost to this 16-year-old kid. And I was like, oh, gosh. And he goes, you get him next. Lo and behold, I lost as well. And he went on to win the amateur. I think he's the youngest winner of the Connecticut Amateur ever. But it was, dude, it is crazy, Andrew, how much confidence and how much these guys expect to compete and win, and they're not scared of anything. And they're not cocky. They're just confident. And I just don't know if this existed when I was growing up. It didn't exist. I don't know about when you were coming up, but it feels like these young guys' maturity level is way higher than it ever was when we were coming up. And you're seeing it. I mean, you're seeing it on the PGA Tour with some of these teenagers having a ton of success and nearly winning.
Man, that's crazy. Yeah, 16. I mean, that I can't even hardly remember back to that day, but I've noticed it just with some of the Pepperdine guys. They members at my home club, them coming back out, and I'll go play with them, and they'll shoot like 61, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, I'm a pro, like I'm on the PGA. You guys are, they're just turning pro, and they're just like, I don't care about you. Like, I'm taking your money today. They just flat out know how to play. It's incredible how good some of these kids are.
Flat out know how to play. And I guess, and again, I saw a little of this at the US Amateur last year. I played a couple rounds in the stroke play part with 2 young guys in college. They were both awesome. They were both great to play with. But I was amazed at how they kind of understood everything, right? They were very aware of everything that was going on around them. They were very aware of how to speak to certain people and, how to acknowledge people that are cheering or congratulating them for good shots or good putts. It just feels like, again, I don't know if it's more exposure in this space. I definitely think exposure has helped amateurs get more comfortable playing professional golf, like what you're seeing on the PGA Tour right now. But the level of everything going on and it not seeming like a bigger deal, and to your point, playing with the PGA Tour player and not being scared to go out there and show off how good you really are, that seems to be the big thing to me that has changed.
Yeah, for sure. And I like even in the college level, for example, Pepperdine, they've had 3 or 4 of their tournaments on the Golf Channel.
Yep.
I mean,
Totally.
that was unheard of when I was going through college. We had maybe right at the end they had nationals on television, but now some of these kids are getting used to cameras following them during the tournaments, and they're on. When there's only 10 teams playing, you're on TV all the time. So like the experience that they get through college is completely different than what I experienced. I remember my first few pro events, like having a camera out there following me. I was just like, I didn't know how to deal with that. And these kids they're getting that in college now. So they're that much more prepared for the pro life and those big tournaments, and they just seem like they're just ready.
Yeah, it's almost like you get to skip the annoying parts that come with turning professional or getting into that space. Like all of those things about what do I need to do here, or I need to be more comfortable in these these situations or these instances, and it's like all that stuff kind of goes out the window because you've already gone through that. I mean, even some of the coverage for things like US Amateur, or like when I was at Fox and we would cover the US Juniors and things like that. And it's like getting that on television is extremely helpful for these top tier players. I mean, I remember having the Junior Amateur, it's like Akshay versus Thor Bjornsson at Baltusrol. And I mean, we covered the whole match, I mean, these are now, stars and potential stars on the PGA Tour, and they're getting that level of exposure in 2016, 2017. That's 6-7 years ago. That's a long time ago to consistently be in front of that. Do you feel like we're going to see the PGA Tour continue to get younger? Like, is there going to be a cap to this where eventually we get to a place where 16-year-olds are consistently competing, or is it going to be outlier players like what we saw with Tiger, what we saw with Jordan, and maybe what we saw with Akshay and players like that?
I mean, the new PJU that they developed, shout out to my college golf coach, Brendan Von Dorn. He actually started that.
Is that right?
With the PGA Tour. So yeah,
Nice.
that was his idea. It's kind of his baby that he started. I think the way they have that incentivized is, you got to stay in college all the way through the end to be able to get that status on the PGA Tour. And I think that will keep most kids staying in college and not coming out too early. I mean, it's a kind of a catch-22. It's like, college is such an amazing time to be part of a team, have all those experiences on the road. I mean, there's so much cool stuff that I necessarily wouldn't want to skip that, in my life. Because once you're on the road you're on the tour, I mean, it can be very low. You've had a lot of people talk about this. Like, it could be very lonely. Akshay, he's, I think, opened up a little bit about how the transition's been tough. And I think a lot of players would agree that's the case. There's no rush to really get out here and have this kind of life. I think there's a lot of experiences you want to have and a lot of maturing that takes place in college that hopefully I feel like those kids need to be incentivized to stay in college and not turn pro too early. I mean, that's one of the cool things about golf is you can play professionally till all the way up through senior tour. So it's not like there's this tight window that you have to turn pro and make as much as you can, there's a lot of, the sport's unique in the way that our careers can go for a long time.
Yeah, the only pushback I'd say on that is it does feel like these windows, in terms of dominant windows, feel like they're shorter and they're younger. Guys like Jordan and Justin, I don't want to say they're past their window, but it's been a while since we saw Jordan as dominant Jordan Spieth, and even JT, he gets that PGA win a couple years ago in that playoff, but kind of outside of that, we haven't seen the JT of 2017 and 2018 in a minute. Do you not feel like those windows are kind of shrinking a little bit? And I'm not talking about the ability to play professional golf for a long time, but I'm just kind of more talking centered on the dominant windows, which if you are a Michael Thorbjornsen who thinks he's going to be a dominant player on the PGA Tour, is your window maybe 22 to 26 or maybe 23 to 29 when it used to be, to your point, 25 to 40,
I would agree with you because the way these kids are swinging when they come out, they're swinging so hard at it. It's like your body can only handle that for so long before
Totally.
there's these little nagging injuries that start happening. And I think the speed that the game's played at now would go to, your peak's going to be in your 20s because after that, start having kids, you start, there's just little things that make it tougher for you to maintain that same swing speed and without injuries. And I mean, that's how most guys, I feel like, start, their career starts going downhill is this little injuries that flame up. And a lot of it's just because guys are swinging at, 185 ball speed. That's kind of like the average coming out. And I watch some of these kids hit and I'm like, dude, how is your body going to, handle this over the long haul? You see some of these positions they're getting into, you're like, this is insane. Like your lower back, I don't know how it's not snapping, but mine would at this point. I'm sure mine could have handled that when I was 20, but I'm thinking about that now. I'm like, dude, I would have some major issues. So
gonna have to change the move. Can I ask you about can I ask you the loneliness question? You brought it up about the loneliness of traveling on tour so consistently. I know you get your family out there as much as possible when you're traveling. How do you deal when you have weeks? I'm assuming these 2 weeks, it'll be you in a rental house with whomever you're staying with or whatever the case may be. How do you deal with the loneliness that is professional golf when it is just you on the road?
Yeah, I mean it's a little different for me right now because I'm either when I got my family out here, I'm with them and it's just nonstop 24/7
Yeah.
stuff going on. And then when I come out by myself, there's the first few days where I feel like I'm just getting that breather of like just, relaxing and catching up
Nobody's
on
asking
sleep.
me for anything. This is amazing.
It's kind of the two extremes. Like it's very weird. It's a huge contrast between like nonstop, which I do love. I do love having my family on the road because it kind of takes my mind off of golf when I'm home. There's like can't even think about it because I'm attending to other stuff. And then when my family's not with me, there's literally just like this week is actually it's kind of bizarre because they're like you said, the sun is up from like 4 to 10 p.m. and there, you feel like there's literally nothing else to do during the day other than golf and I don't know what else. Like literally there's nothing to do. And so I have a former Pepperdine caddy who's staying with me this week. I was going to be solo and now he didn't have a room and I was like, hey, you can stay with me. I got a little pull out bed. So I'm kind of happy he's joining me because it's kind of a weird, this week is kind of weird because there's nothing to do over here other than golf and drink coffee maybe. I don't know.
Watch Wimbledon. I guess you could get up and watch Wimbledon in the morning if you want to do that. You get a few
That's
days
true.
of that left. All right, let's get into Scottish because you got Scottish this week and Open next week. You played the Scottish last year at the Renaissance, and I think you played relatively well, finished top 50, tied 42nd last year. What can you tell us about this golf course? What do you have to do? Have you got a chance to look at it or play a practice round yet out there?
Yeah, I played 9 holes today and it's in incredible shape. Fairways are rolling pretty fast and greens are pretty firm right now. I mean, we couldn't find any ball marks when we were playing out there. And so, last year I think it was pretty benign the first few days. And then I think Sunday it really, like the wind really came up. So, it's, it's kind of more of I guess more of an American style links course if you were to compare it to anything else. I know the owner I think he's like the CEO of Insperity or something. He's an American dude. So it's not your traditional link style course. But I think it's a good like warm up course for the guys who are playing the Open Championship. It's not so extreme, but it kind of gets you in that mode to start working the ball on the ground and playing the ball on the ground. But like we've been saying, it's all about the wind and the conditions. And I played actually, I think this is my third or fourth year out here. I played this event. I got a sponsors invite back when it was just a European tour event and came over and I think I finished fourth that week. It was a really great week. But
Which course was that at?
It was at this course.
It was
Yeah,
here. Okay, good.
it was here. I know they've made a couple tweaks, couple changes. When they found out the tour was going to be coming here, they made it a little tougher. But for the most part, it's pretty much the same routing and yeah, it's just there's some pop bunkers here and there, but it's not anything too extreme like you see at some of the other link style courses. You can see a lot of the bunkers on this golf course where like North Berwick we were playing and you'd hit a tee shot and not really know if it was in the fairway or if you were going to be chipping out.
That's right.
And that's
Yep.
that's how typical link style is where you just there's a little bit more unknown off the tee. This is a little more what you see is what you get. So but it's just going to be all weather dependent. I mean, last year I remember just on 18 it was a par 4, it's like 400 and I think they put the tee up 450 or 440. I remember hitting driver short of the green.
This was on
And
Sunday?
this was on Sunday, it
Yeah,
just
this
was
when
like
Rory hit the 2-iron or whatever, yeah.
yeah, it was impossible. Just like the course felt impossible. And the days before, it's driver 7-iron or whatever. So, the courses just changed so quickly over here. You feel like you played a day in a practice and you're like, yeah, this course is pretty easy. And then wind comes up and you're like, man, this place is impossible.
So, I have a really interesting relationship with practice rounds to begin with. I think practice rounds, for the most part, are a bit of a waste of time outside of just kind of getting familiar with the golf course. I feel like I don't know if the answer is either they are the most helpful practice rounds or the least helpful practice rounds when you talk about playing a practice round for a links golf course like the Scottish or the Open Championship because you need to know what the golf course presents. Like you said, they might be hitting bunkers on some golf courses. I mean, Royal Troon is like the most links golf course that they play on the road, in my opinion, right? And that's the Open Championship next week. but you also have absolutely no idea what the condition's going to look like. So you could play a hole, like you said, on Wednesday and hit driver 8-iron into 18, and then the next day the fan straight into the fan, and you're hitting driver 3-wood. You're like, I don't even know what this hole looked like. I didn't even know that this was an area of the golf hole, right? I mean, I was 50 past this when I played here yesterday. Yeah. Is this a waste of time in terms of practice rounds, or is it nice to just get out there hitting certain golf shots?
Yeah, it is. Like today is kind of a waste of time, honestly, when it's perfect weather and there's no wind and it's nice and sunny. I mean, there's not a whole lot of reason to be out there because I was like just remembering some of the shots from Sunday, and there's just certain putts where, you're looking at the green, it doesn't look like there's that much of a slope, but then you add in a 20-mile-an-hour downwind gust or 30-mile-an-hour, and you're like, this is the fastest putt I've ever hit. And today you're just thinking like, I don't even see the slope at all. So I mean, it is nice in a practice run. You got to really pay attention to where the tiny little slopes are, places to miss it, because once that wind comes up, you really need to know the little details of where the ball can be and where you can get it up and down from.
Are you going to play any more golf besides playing actual tournament golf while you're there? Do you think you'll throw another round in somewhere or no?
Possibly, yeah, maybe Muirfield. We'll see.
Nice.
My caddy has an open invite out there. I'm sure he can hook it up and get me out there too. But yeah, we'll kind of see what the weather looks like tomorrow. It's supposed to be. I mean, they're saying possibly not even playing. It could be such a bad day. I mean, we'll be playing. I think people always over exaggerate. It's about 20 to 30 mile an hour winds with 100% rain. So. They don't stop playing golf over here for that. It's a normal day.
I have a question for you in conditions because I was thinking about this the other day. It wasn't John Deere because I wasn't really paying much attention to John Deere. It must have been the week before, and it was lift clean in place. One of the rounds was lift clean in place. I think it was a 59 at the Travelers. It was lift clean in place. I was thinking about it. It feels like lift clean in place is played way more now than it ever has been before. Do you think we do it too often? Do you think we err on the side of lift clean in place on tour versus just leaning into either the elements or the potential elements that might exist?
Personally, as a player, no. I mean, there's nothing worse than like hitting a fairway and having a mud ball. Like,
gotcha.
In my opinion, it's not golf because you're just guessing. I'd rather be like in those conditions, you'd rather hit it in the rough, because you wouldn't get a mud ball.
Gotcha.
And I just
don't
that
makes
think
sense.
that it's just kind of a weird way to play. And so I know the tour, they are very conservative on, if they know a storm's coming later that day, you could be playing in the morning in perfectly sunny conditions and they'll have lift clean in place sometimes. That's just to protect the field from whatever happens. I think some of these rules officials are a little scared because guys have just, lost their minds on these
laid
rules
into
officials before.
That's right.
That they're like, we don't even want to chance this anymore because these guys are, I've seen players, there's nothing more frustrating than hitting fairways and then your ball just flying all over the place, and so players will really give it to the rules officials. And I think they've just really gotten scared. So they do probably do it too much now, but I don't know.
Maybe the PGA Tour needs to hire the NHL like refs as rules officials when you hear the mic'd up versions of them and they're just like talking shit back to the players. It's like maybe we need to get these like hardcore rules officials in there that just give it back to the Sergio Garcias of the world that are like leaning into him about something. But I understand what you're saying. And I think as a viewer, sometimes we roll our eyes at lift clean in place. But as a player, you're a morning wave guy and it's wet. You're going to be screwed versus the afternoon players that aren't playing in as wet of conditions. You're hitting fairways, you're getting mud balls, and you're making bogeys. The afternoon wave, it dries up a bit. They're not getting any mud balls. Like that isn't necessarily fair, especially
But Shane, you're like a golf purist, okay? There's not a lot like you that are actually watching and caring about. Like the average
You're totally right.
Viewer,
I totally agree with you. Totally agree.
It's the guys who really are like into the game who probably have more of a problem with it. Like I don't even like when I'm watching the coverage, I don't really see a lot of the lift clean in place, like when it is in effect. It's more the people who are really tuned in, like yourself, a journalist or someone who's covering the sport, who probably get annoyed by it.
It's the group. Like, I always think about this, like the group on Twitter that yells about stuff, and we're just yelling all to ourselves. Like, it's not really like anybody else. Nobody else
Yeah.
is reading it. Nobody else probably cares. I just feel like we're all screaming to ourselves about this. It's like you said. It's that group of kind of purist golf that, oh, we shouldn't be doing this. Everybody agrees, right? And everybody's like, I don't even know it
Yeah.
was lift clean in place. Like, I don't even know when it's lift clean in place.
Yeah. I mean, and the guys, who hate when they're shooting 30 under, it's like, well, I'm sure the average golf viewer is like, oh, this is cool. There's a lot of birdies, man, and a lot of eagles. I don't know.
Yeah, I think my only score, and we talked about scoring earlier. I think the only thing I've ever said about scoring, and the only thing that bothers me about scoring is when it's so low and when it's so soft and when it's so quote unquote easy for you guys. The fear of bogey kind of goes out the window. It's like you're going to make par or birdie and you're just going to kind of keep leading, going up the leaderboard. And when it gets down to it on Sunday, the 18th hole, like nobody that's playing well enough to be in contention is probably going to make a bogey there anyway because the golf courses are playing so easy. And I want an errant golf shot to bring in bogey or higher, much like a good shot brings in birdie or better. And I feel like a lot of the time when the conditions are so soft or it is so benign in terms of the way the golf courses are playing, the first part of that kind of goes out the window. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And we played, plenty of those kind of golf courses on tour. I know, like Muirfield,
Totally.
Jack's event, perfect example. I remember hearing, I think I was playing with Alex Knorr in the final day, and he was having a good round, and he was kind of going back and forth with his caddy. He was just, you get to a point where you're playing a course that's playing really difficult, and it feels really hard as a player, especially on a Sunday back nine. You're feeling like you have to hit perfect shots. Even if you have a 120-yard gap wedge and you hit the shot a million times, you're feeling like you got to be perfect. And those courses I feel like they just challenge you mentally a lot more because you are always on edge because there's a bogey that if you make a little mistake, you're making bogey. John Deere, you make a big mistake, you still have a good chance of pars, And I think that's the main difference. It's a mental challenge.
Do you do anything different these 2 weeks in terms of your prep? Any like golf club changes, anything like that? Do you do anything to your equipment?
Not necessarily. I've tried to, mess around with putting a 2-iron in play. But it's never really, I've never had conditions consistently like it blowing enough to that makes sense every round. So I usually just stick with what I got. I know some guys do. They maybe take out some bounce in their clubs because it's pretty firm out of here and put like Strixon has a really great 2-iron that a lot of guys actually play. That can be nice. I played it in practice rounds. It's fun to hit those little laser beams, but you're like, am I really going to trust this in a tournament? I did last year in the Open. I had a 2-iron in the first round. I hit a couple good shots with it, but no, I just try to stick with what I got for the most part.
By the way, you're looking for a day of golf. You should go to Musselburgh. It's not too far from where you guys are at. They have that golf course that's inside the horse track, and you can play with hickories. That's a great little afternoon getaway.
That could be fun.
I'll text you the I'll text you the golf course because it's got they have the hickories there and you can go play it and it's awesome. It's one of the oldest. I will say one of my favorite things about Scotland. It's a little bit like on Elf when it's like the best cup of coffee in the world. A lot of the places over there claim being the oldest course in the world or one of the oldest courses in the world. I think this truly is the oldest golf course in the world. But yeah, they've got hickories you can take out. So a good
would
little.
Would that screw up my swing or would that help like me just getting in the slot nicely?
Maybe it's like a tempo thing. Like how's the tempo right now? You feeling good?
It's it's a so-so.
I think hickories slow you down a bit. They just kind of slow you down, get you there. Maybe you go buy the outfit as well, like you go for it.
Film it like Bryson did for his YouTube channel.
You know what? I will say this. Like I've talked to you about this. We talked about it on the pod. Like I've done a full 180 on Bryson. That outfit played. Bryson wore the hell out of that outfit. It looked good. He wore it well. The stash played. All in. Yeah. I love the turnaround for Mr. DeChambeau. People love that episode, by the way. So nice work on that. Well, exciting. I'm excited to watch. I love this time of year. Getting up in the morning. Our buddies at the Shotgun Start call it coffee golf. It is great coffee golf. When you wake up and there's like half the waves already finished on Thursday and Friday before you're even into cup number one. So this is awesome, and I'm pumped to watch play. You know who you're playing with, by the way? They got that come out yet?
No, I think probably tomorrow is when they post that stuff. We got pro-ams the next 2 days, and then they'll
Gotcha.
let us
Who
know
who
who our
won, by the
friends
way?
are.
Did you beat Hadwin or no when you played with him? Did you beat him at North Berwick?
Well, we said we were just playing for fun. We actually didn't keep score. The two caddies we
Wow.
had, the two caddies in our group did. They were having a pretty good match, but Hadwin, he had just got off the flight and he was just not in the mood to really be competitive. So
Sounds like he didn't want to lose money to you. That's what it sounds like. Sounds like he wanted to keep his pounds.
possibly,
Can I
yeah.
ask you? Can I ask you a question? Do you change cash when you get over there? I'm assuming you got to tip people. Do you flip over
Yeah,
cash?
we actually had to last night. We did a little fish and chips after the round, and it
Yep.
was no credit card allowed. So we had to go to the ATM, get some cash for that. Hadwin actually, it was funny. He had a bunch of old bills from like 3 years ago when he was here, and he tried to pay, and the guy's like, "What are you doing? Those are old. Those don't work
Dude,
anymore." And he's like, "They don't work? What do you mean? The money just not good?" So he literally is like, "I just wasted this money. I guess they like switched all the bills, and the old ones are bad now."
dude, I had the same thing happen to me when I was there
No way.
last time. I'll save international cash if it's not more than about a 20-pound note or something. I'll save it in a bag, all this international money if I go anywhere. And then when I'm leaving to go somewhere, I look through it and see if there's anything in it. I might have had 30 pounds with me. None of it played when I got over there. And I was
Oh
like, well,
my
this is cool,
gosh.
guys. Thanks so much. Yeah, they must have changed.
Yeah,
It's
you're
like,
trying to be responsible and keep all your
trying
money
to be an
in.
adult. Trying to be an adult over here.
Brutal.
Well, awesome. Well, listen, play well. How about our Wi-Fi, by the way? How about the international Wi-Fi? Bringing it.
It's working. We've had some rough times the last couple weeks, so
If you play as well as the Wi-Fi played on this episode, I mean, we're looking at like an easy, cool top 10, right?
yeah. That's what I need too. I need that to get in the Open next week. So
You got a top 10 to get into Troon, right?
probably, yeah. That's approximately.
Right.
They're taking the top 3 players not otherwise exempt. So I mean, top 10 should do it.
Now, this is a crazy thought. You could just win it and then not have to worry about it. Because
True.
I think if you win, that's top 3, right?
That would get you top 3.
Yeah, that's right. Like U of A education right there. That's the right there for you. Awesome. All right, we'll play well this week. We'll be keeping an eye on you, and we'll
Cool.
check back with you next week.
Good times. Thanks, Shane.